I want to start with a scenario that I think is going to make your palms sweat a little bit. It certainly does mine.
Okay, lay it on me.
You're at, let's say, a dinner party. Or maybe it's a high-stakes quarterly review, it doesn't matter. But the room is full of people whose opinions actually matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that one person, maybe it's a skeptical uncle, maybe it's a board member with a grudge, and they lean in and they ask that loaded question. So are we sure this new strategy is actually going to pay off?
Oh, I know that feeling. It's not just a question, is it? It's a challenge.
It is physical, right? Your heart rate spikes, your stomach just drops, and your brain immediately screams, I need to fix this, I need to explain, I need to show them the spreadsheets, the logic, the 10-step contingency plan.
You get this overwhelming urge to just flood the zone with information to prove you know what you're doing.
Exactly. You want to win them over.
It's the most human instinct in the world. We crave that validation. We want to be understood.
Right. But the research we're looking at today argues that this instinct, this desperate need to explain yourself, is actually a trap. And not just, a social faux pas, but a massive strategic error.
It's a fascinating take. We're doing a deep dive today into a concept called strategic silence. We're pulling from a pretty intense stack of sources, specifically excerpts from the Machiavellian strategy of silence and adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be connecting that directly to Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince.
And I have to say, when I first saw Machiavelli in the reading list, I braced myself for something a little dark.
Yeah.
I mean, we usually associate him with backstabbing and manipulation.
That's the pop culture version of Machiavelli for sure. But what we're looking at today is Machiavelli as the ultimate realist. He wasn't necessarily about being evil. He was just obsessed with how power actually works versus how we wish it worked.
Okay.
And the core argument of this deep dive is that explaining yourself is often a mechanism that just drains your power, ties your hands, and actually makes you less effective.
So the mission today is to figure out why keeping your mouth shut might be the smartest move you can make, and why we're all so bad at it.
That's the plan.
Let's start with what the source calls the justification trap. Because I think I pushed back on this when I first read it. In my head, communication is good. Transparency is modern. If I'm leading a team, shouldn't I be clear about my reasons?
See, there's a massive difference between informing someone and justifying yourself to them. And that's the distinction the source draws. Informing is just dispensing necessary data.
And justifying is.
Justifying is seeking approval.
Okay, unpack that. How do we know which one we're doing?
Look at the power dynamic. When you feel that urge to over-explain, to write that 3-page email defending a decision, or to give a 10-minute monologue at dinner, you're implicitly saying, I need you to agree with me for this to be valid. You're handing the authority to judge your actions over to the skeptic.
So by trying to prove I'm right, I'm actually signaling that I'm insecure about my position.
Precisely. The source argues that this reflex weakens you in 2 very specific ways. The first is resources. It just drains your energy from execution.
Okay.
Think about the last time you got into some defensive loop with a coworker. How much mental bandwidth did you spend crafting the perfect argument?
Hours, honestly. Sometimes days of just, ruminating.
Right. And every hour you spend crafting a defense is an hour you are not spending executing the project. You are reallocating your most limited resource, your focus, away from the work and toward the optics of the work.
That makes sense. But the second point in the text, that scared me a lot more. It talked about self-imposed commitments.
This is the more dangerous trap.
This is where I want to get specific, because I think I've done this. The source argues that when we explain our plans in detail to appease a skeptic, we are accidentally making promises we can't keep.
Okay, let's use a concrete example. Let's say you're a project lead. You're building a piece of software, or maybe you're even just renovating your kitchen. A stakeholder, the client, or your spouse, gets nervous. This taking too long? Do you have a handle on this?
And my instinct is to say, yes, absolutely. Here's exactly how we are going to catch up. Step A, we're going to pour the concrete on Tuesday. Step B, the cabinets arrive Thursday. Step C, we're painting on Friday.
Yes, you do that to make them feel better right now. You are buying momentary relief from their anxiety. But you have just created a massive liability for yourself.
Because things go wrong.
Because reality is messy. Maybe the concrete truck breaks down. Maybe the cabinets are the wrong color. In a normal situation, you'd just adapt. You'd change the schedule, swap the order of operations, you'd pivot.
But because I gave them the detailed justification plan.
You are now a liar. You aren't just a project manager dealing with a delay. You're someone who broke a specific promise. The skeptic comes back and says, but you said Tuesday. You explained the whole logic of Tuesday.
Oh, that's brutal.
You have chained yourself to a specific path to prove you were competent. And by doing so, you lost the flexibility to actually be competent.
That is such a huge concept, optionality.
Optionality. That is the key word here. The source argues that in a complex environment, whether it's 16th century Italian politics or a 2024 tech startup, the most valuable asset you have is the ability to change your mind, the ability to pivot.
And when you over-explain, you kill your optionality.
You kill it.
You're cementing your feet in the ground to show how sturdy you are, but then you can't walk when the storm comes.
That's a great image. And this leads us right into the historical context.
Okay.
We have to talk about the Prince.
1513. Florence.
Written in 1513, published in 1532. And again, we have to look at this through the lens of realism. Machiavelli looked at leaders who tried to be good or honest or transparent in the way we think of it, and he saw them getting slaughtered.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally. He argued that the world is governed by fortune and force, not by fairness. And in that world, he gives us this famous metaphor in chapter 18, the fox and the lion.
I love this metaphor, but I want to make sure I'm getting in this context. Usually we think the lion is the king, the lion is strong. Why wouldn't we want to be the lion?
So the lion is great at scaring off wolves. The lion projects force. But Machiavelli says the lion is defenseless against traps. The lion is too direct, too predictable. It just charges in.
And the fox?
The fox is physically weaker, but the fox knows how to detect traps. The fox is cunning. The source makes this brilliant connection here. It argues that the urge to over-explain is a failure to be the fox. It's a lion move.
Wait, explaining is a lion move. I would have thought staying silent was the strong, silent lion move.
No, think about the energy of it. The skeptic challenges you. That challenge is a trap. It's a snare. If you respond with a roar, if you rush in with your 10-point plan and your impassioned defense, you are trying to use brute force to overpower their doubt.
You're charging right into the net.
You are charging right into the net. You're engaging on their terms.
Right. You've exposed your position.
You've laid out your entire strategy for everyone to see, including your enemies. The fox sees the skepticism, recognizes it as a trap designed to get you to reveal your hand, and just steps around it.
So being the fox means knowing when not to speak.
It means valuing survival and flexibility over the ego boost of winning an argument in the moment.
This feels like it applies perfectly to the modern workplace. The source material brings up this CEO's dilemma that I think really crystallizes the danger here.
The CEO example is brutal because we see it happen in the news all the time.
Walk us through it. We have a CEO, the company is struggling, stock is down, the public is angry.
Right. The pressure is immense. The board, the media, the employees, everyone is demanding, what are you going to do?
And the good CEO feels like they owe everyone an answer.
So they release the master plan. You've seen these decks. We are going to cut costs in Division A by 12%. We are pivoting marketing to Gen Z, and we are launching the new flagship product in Q3.
They answer every single critique with a specific, detailed countermove.
And for about 24 hours, the stock probably goes up. Everyone says, wow, look at that clarity.
Yeah,
I get the applause, but look at what they've actually done. First, they've told their competitors exactly where they're going, but more importantly, they have anchored their entire reputation to a specific set of predictions about the future.
And if Gen Z doesn't like the marketing, or if the supply chain delays the Q3 launch,
Now they're trapped. If they try to pivot 6 months later, they aren't viewed as agile. They are viewed as failures. The narrative becomes the CEO's plan didn't work.
yeah.
Whereas if they had maintained what the source calls strategic silence, communicating the vision but withholding the tactics, they could have adjusted the plan a dozen times without anyone knowing they were struggling.
So the argument is, don't limit your future self by overdefining your present self.
Yes. Preserve your optionality at all costs.
But I have to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Because I can hear a listener screaming at their phone right now. If I go into my boss's office and he asks for a status update and I just sit there being a fox and saying nothing, I'm going to get fired.
Fair point. We are not advocating for stonewalling. This isn't about being mute or, passive-aggressive.
So what is the difference between strategic silence and just being unhelpful?
It's about the focus of your communication. The source defines strategic silence not as the absence of noise, but as the exclusive focus on building results. You report on progress. You report on outcomes. You do not report on the 57 anxieties you have.
Or the 12 different ways you might solve the problem.
Exactly. The feature is on track for release versus, well, we had a bug in the code and I'm worried about Dave's performance, but I have a plan to fix it. One inspires confidence. The other invites meddling. But there's a nuance here regarding who you are talking to. The source splits the audience into two groups: genuine supporters and performative skeptics.
I love this categorization. It feels very useful for, like, mental hygiene. Who are the genuine supporters?
These are the people who actually want the project to succeed. They are on your team. And the key thing about them is that they respond to reality. They respond to progress.
So they don't need the sales pitch.
No. In fact, the sales pitch often worries them. They just want to know that the needle is moving. If you give them results, they are happy. You don't need to explain the philosophy of how you got there.
And then there are the performative skeptics. I feel like I've met a lot of these in my life.
These are the dangerous ones. The source argues that for these people, the skepticism isn't a quest for truth. It's a performance. They ask difficult questions to show off their own intellect or to establish dominance in a meeting.
So they're just poking holes to see if you bleed.
Basically.
Yeah.
And here is the crucial Machiavellian insight. You cannot convince them with data.
Why not? If I have the facts, shouldn't that win?
No, because the argument is the point for them. If you give them a detailed explanation, you are just giving them more surface area to attack. You give them a 10-page report, they will find a typo on page 6 and make the entire meeting about that.
So engaging with them is just a resource sink.
It's a black hole. You pour energy in and you get nothing back. The only way to handle a performative skeptic is to starve the argument of oxygen.
Give them nothing to latch onto.
Minimal viable response. Pivot back to the results. We hear your concern, and the data will be ready in Q4. Move on. Be the fox. Don't step into the trap.
It's ruthless, but it feels incredibly efficient. It circles back to that idea of energy management. We have a finite amount of lion energy to get things done. Why waste it roaring at people who aren't listening?
That's it. Communication is a tool. It is not a therapy session.
I want to print that on a t-shirt. Communication is not a therapy session.
It's true. When you feel that urge to explain, you have to ask yourself, am I doing this to move the project forward? Or am I doing this because I feel anxious and I want this person to tell me I'm doing a good job?
And if it's the second one,
then you are in the trap.
This is a really different way of looking at relationships, professional and personal. It requires a lot of discipline. It's hard to sit in that silence when someone is looking at you expectantly.
It's incredibly hard. It creates tension. But the source argues that holding that tension is a power move. When you explain, you relieve the tension, but you lower your status. When you hold the silence, when you let the results speak, you maintain the high ground.
So bringing this all together, we've gone from, 16th century Italian court politics to modern boardroom strategy. The big takeaway seems to be that we need to fundamentally rethink the cost of our words.
Words are expensive. We treat them like they're free, but they cost us flexibility, they cost us mystery, and they cost us leverage.
We talked about the justification trap, how explaining creates these self-imposed commitments that limit our future options.
And we looked at the CEO who paralyzes themselves by overpromising to the public.
And of course, the fox and the lion. The idea that the real danger isn't the wolf, it's the trap that the wolf sets to get you to expose your neck.
That's the image I want you to keep in your head.
So, to the listener, the next time you feel that heat rising in your chest, that desperate need to explain yourself, pause.
I'll take a bit.
Ask yourself if you are talking to a supporter or a skeptic. Ask yourself if you are reporting progress or seeking validation. And remember, you don't owe anyone the blueprint of your mind. You just owe them the outcome.
Well said.
Before we wrap up, I know you always have one final provocation for us, something to take away and chew on. What is it today?
I want you to do a little forensic analysis on your own life. Look back at the last time you felt that desperate need to explain yourself, maybe to a boss, a partner, or a parent. And ask yourself 2 questions. First, did explaining actually help the project, or did it just make you feel understood for 5 minutes? And second, and this is the scary one, by laying your cards on the table, how many future options did you accidentally close off? How much did you limit your future self just to satisfy your present insecurity?
That is uncomfortable, but I think that's the point.
Realism usually is.
That's the deep dive. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Stay strategic.